for coming back to another episode of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. We're excited to bring on a guest in a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to cover the news. I've been learning a lot about lawsuits, and there's many more lawsuits than I thought. What happens typically is most cases never end up getting filed. There's something called the baseball rule, and most states do recognize the baseball rule, so it's harder to find an attorney. But I'm trying to get the history of all cases that have ever been filed over the last 100 years. We're not sure what that number may be. Many of these cases never make it to trial. Sometimes there's proceedings before trials, and there's settlements, or the case isn't accepted at all. So that's just something I'd like to find out more about. Since I'm aware of a recent settlement in Modesto where a woman got struck in the head by a foul ball outside the ballpark in 2023, and it was a recent settlement, we wanted to go a little bit deeper in finding out some more cases. So I asked a law school student to go through the states. He's in the process of finding out any cases that have been filed over the last 100 years. At some point in time, that'll be a show in itself when we can determine all the proceedings, all the cases that have been brought forward. Also aware of a situation in Illinois, a new case that we just found out about yesterday that's coming up to trial. It's just an interesting area that really hasn't been tapped into. Yes, there is a thing called the baseball rule, which is a deterrent for lawyers to get involved in most states where they do recognize the baseball rules, because the baseball rule as an unofficial rule, if you will, that if you're assuming the risk at the baseball game, so if you get hit by a ball or a bat or some other object, the team isn't responsible. So that's interesting news, and we're going to share more about that in the near future. Foul Ball Safety Now has been at it for 6 years, and it's an opportunity and a platform at Foul Ball Safety Now Talks to bring on guests who may have known about this issue a week ago or may not have known about the issue a week ago. May be baseball people, may not be baseball people, but it's an opportunity to turn the tables and have our guests ask us questions that we don't know, and we're happy to be as forthcoming as we can be. I want to introduce our guest today. She's an actor, she's a teacher, and her name is Sharon Sigler. Sharon, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Are you ready to bring some questions to Brianna and I?
Yes, and some facts that I looked up.
All right. And feel free to start the conversation. So let's turn it over to Sharon.
Okay, what I was wondering before is if fans or injuries are insured, and it doesn't sound like they are.
No, they're definitely not. That's something that the baseball rule has been in place. So most people who get injured, it turns out, probably don't even file. They can't even find an attorney, because most attorneys, personal injury lawyers, they're working on contingency. They're not usually going to invest all these hours and find out that they can't even get their case heard. A lot of attorneys won't even take the case. So unfortunately, the fans aren't insured when they go to games.
Okay, I was concerned too, especially keeping children safe. And has anyone ever, I know they have a lot of right and left field balls that go in foul territory. Has anyone ever been hurt by a home run ball?
Yes, there have definitely been people hurt by home run balls. It's a conversation worthy of a discussion. I've seen injuries reported, people getting injured by home run balls, and it's permissible. There's no age restriction. I think we should be raising questions about the home run ball because it still gets out there pretty fast. I have one example of a child getting seriously injured during the All-Star game festivities, where they were standing outside in the outfield with a glove, and they weren't behind the fence for a home run ball. They were inside the ballpark, and maybe they weren't quite ready with their glove to take on 100-mile-an-hour line drives, because 11-year-olds or 9-year-olds aren't playing that type of speed baseball. So they're out there with their gloves, and this boy got hit in the head because he misjudged it. And this was a young person with a glove and failed to meet the glove and met the boy or girl's head. That was a few years ago. I have many more examples of serious injuries from other parts of the ballpark.
Okay. I know now they don't have extended netting beyond the dugouts. And why is that? Why are they not doing this?
Right. So I would say most of the professional ballparks, 30 major league ballparks, and then there's another 169 other professional ballparks. Most at this stage of the game have extended netting past the end of the dugouts. There are still 40 of the 199, if that's the right math. There's still approximately 40 that still do not have netting past end of dugouts. That's criminal. That's really upsetting because it's so obvious that when you see that video at Foul Ball Safety Now from 2019, which I call Exhibit A, it's a 5-minute video. Everyone should check it out. It demonstrates that line drives just past end of dugouts can be lethal. And unfortunately, you see direct hits to little children on this video. And there's still about 40 professional ballparks in America in 2025 that are doing business this way. So it is unacceptable. There have been upgrades. At the time this video aired, there may have been around 100 ballparks that had no netting past end of dugouts. It's worthy of a further look. But why is it taking so long for these changes to be implemented? A netting installation could be done in 4 days. Chicago White Sox did something in 2019, and that was at a major league ballpark where they did extended nets. It's not a solution, it's an improvement. I don't want to give people the illusion that even with extended nets at all 199 professional ballparks, is it good to go? It's above my pay grade. I want the independent netting council people to come in and tell us exactly where the questions are and what remains to be a concern. I can only address what we see together and then hopefully pass on that discussion to the people who are smarter than me in that area.
Yeah, you wonder why the MLB hasn't fixed the issue, and you can take a couple things off the table. Obviously, it's not a monetary issue. It's not money. It's not that they can't afford it. I honestly think it's not that they don't know about it. They have more data than anyone on foul ball injuries, just how many people are getting injured. They know who's reporting to first aid. They know when they're sending medics out to aid a fan who's just been injured. So it's not that it's an unknown factor and that they're unaware of the problem. I think it really comes down to that sadly, if you look at their history and their legacy, that they have no incentive. And if you look at their legacy, a human life is not enough incentive for the MLB to fix the issue. And they're shielded completely by the baseball rule that unless a massive injury, child who is seriously injured, a death, they're pretty much protected from any monetary responsibility. And even if a massive event happens, such as a child injury that's serious or a death, they settle out of court and they have to sign an NDA where they can't really speak on the issue. So it doesn't get brought to the light. So they're completely shielded by the legal system from having any incentive to fix the issue.
Yeah, I understand there's no legal recourse. The baseball rule shields them from liability. Are they trying to change the baseball rule?
Well, again, there still have been lawyers that have filed, and it's just a little bit more difficult in most of the 50 states because most of the 50 states do recognize the baseball rule. On the question about whether they're trying to get an act of Congress to abolish the baseball rule, not enough incentive, I guess, in the political landscape has been stimulating these politicians to get behind this issue and sponsor a new bill or an act of Congress that would say this is no longer recognized in the United States and that going forward, this is the way business would have to be done, or a combination of better netting and regulation. There's no regulation, so each team is doing their upgrades as they see fit, and we believe they're unfit for doing business and because they're still leaving families in the unknown, and nobody should be in the unknown. It's 2025, And Brianna and I could put this information on the table and raise all kinds of questions and inspire other people to raise those questions as well. We're just three people here, but we want the room to get bigger. We want everyone to learn about what we've absorbed over the last 6 years, what Brianna and Brendan and I, for the most part, Brendan's been with me for 6 years as an investigative journalist, doing all the research, hearing all the injuries from victims on interviews, hearing the conflicted players, more than 30 players who've told us their own dilemmas. So it's quite an interesting conversation, Sharon.
Or do we need to contact our representatives or senators or something in each state to try to get this through and expand the legal accountability?
I would love to get a conversation on with anyone from any political office that is open to receiving everything that we've absorbed. We have that clear video from that 5-minute ESPN video. We call it Exhibit A, produced by ESPN, big sports network. That was in 2019. We also have something we call Exhibit A1, which is a report put out by a publication called 538 in 2019. But Brendan and I, the journalist I've been working with now for 6 years at Foul Ball Safety Now, he and I looked at that report from 2019, and then we revisited it and we updated it with other numbers that it's so easy to follow what people have not been seeing for so long. Just how many foul balls that go every year into hot zones. And people can conclude that there's a lot more questions, and we deserve as fans accountability on what we didn't hear, what they chose not to tell us. Baseball is not doing business forthright. They're promoting the game as fan friendly, but I don't know how in good conscience they could when they're sitting on all this data. And Exhibit A1 is really worthy of an inspection. So please see it at the website.
Okay. I talked to a former Major League Baseball player to get his opinion. And he
Yes.
said green should be down both baselines. Manufactured bats are used from T-ball to college, making young players and fans at even greater risk. And
Yeah.
it's a public health threat, he said.
It would be wonderful to connect with anyone who you think would be a good guest or somebody who you think could be a good advocate. They don't necessarily have to be a guest, but it's great to get the perspective of the major league player for sure.
Yes. My youngest son played baseball from age 4 to high school. And I wondered what the expense is. You said it's not really a monetary thing.
It's not a monetary thing. I actually, when we got started with Foul Ball Safety Now in 2019, I made a genuine gesture to upgrade the teams in New York with netting. I didn't think they were going to take my gesture, and maybe people thought I was acting like a big shot because I was offering a lot of money to teams in New York, the Mets and the Yankees, to take my money, but they did not. But I've been at this for 6 years since I made that gesture, and I've done other things to try to put this issue on the map. And I've also, again, working with journalists, working with lawyers on lawsuits, and also doing stunts like renting out airplanes, which costs a lot of money. But it's okay because I want to make a point that we need to wake up the communities to the fact that we're in the dark. We continually remain in the dark, and families are coming to the games demonstrating a lack of awareness about what's happening at the game. And nobody's giving them enough information before they arrive at the game. And even when you do arrive at the game, there could be signs and there could be warnings, but we're not superheroes. And we were never designed to be one, to get out of the way of some of those speeding line drives. Superheroes, unfortunately, they don't really exist in reality in baseball in 2025. And once we all acknowledge that, then dialogue and conversation will be able to address the past and the present and hopefully the future. So,
Yes. I wonder how expensive the legal expenses are and who's paying for it.
the legal expenses, when you say for the victims,
Yes.
Well, a lot of people, they're not covered when they go to the games. So you're assuming the risk. So if you don't have a lawyer, unless you're a high profile child that is seen on national TV, a lot of times people are left holding the bill. I had a woman who contacted me from Tennessee, and she had $100,000 worth of damage, and she was from the state of Ohio, and I think they put a lien on her house. Yeah, the medical paid her bill, but they found that she had assets, and they were like, "Well, you got to pay us back that $100,000 before you can sell your house." So I heard all kinds of scenarios, and people are left to pay out of pocket. Teams aren't calling up the victims and saying, "How you doing and what kind of therapy do you need?" Brendan and I have interviewed more than 70 people, 20 victims and family members. And this guy was one guy in Philadelphia, Dwayne. He was really messed up. He had a lot of surgeries and he needed a lot of home care. The teams aren't calling them up and asking them how they're doing and can we pay, the $800 for the therapy this week. They're not doing that kind of thing. It's not a community. Once you're hurt, you're gone. Baseball knows there's 80 million people, and the majority, 79 million plus, are never going to be affected by it. But the other people will be. But we're here to document everything and hear your questions and concerns.
They should change this right away. I don't know how we can get it started, like I said, with our representatives or senators or something in Congress.
Yeah, we're accessible. We're accessible. We want to inspire change. Business as usual in 2025 is clearly the dark ages, whether it's Major League Baseball at the 30 ballparks or whether it's the other 169 professional baseball ballparks. The risk is there at all of the places. Why can't we finally have transparency, exactly where the risks are, and finally discuss what's appropriate, what's not appropriate? What's not appropriate for under 18 may be appropriate for over 18. But can you put this information out there so people can finally make an informed decision? That's my attitude.
Right. I found out too that Japan has done this for years. They've got the netting and they track every foul ball.
That's right. Japan is more of a civilized form of communication on how baseball is being conducted. They have team attendants on every aisle that when the balls come up and down, somebody's blowing a whistle. No line drives are coming at heads at 100 miles per hour. They do have something called the Excite seats where they provide gloves and helmets for people that want to flirt with the danger element. I still don't understand why they have helmets and they don't have face masks because you can still catch one in the face even with a helmet, but at least the nets are higher on the sides. No line drives are getting on the sides like it is in America, where you see Exhibit A, where straight line drives are coming at 100. You don't see that in Japan. The nets are higher on the side. And I'm not saying that MLB hasn't extended their nets down further down the lines, but who says it's high enough? And why are balls still getting over those nets and hurting people? Why can't we just finally have an information exchange about this is what's happening? Sharon, every winter is another opportunity for Major League Baseball and professional baseball to come clean, to tell us what we can expect for the spring and the summer based on the years past. They know exactly how many foul balls are going, how fast, and what sections. Exhibit A1 identifies that on the website at Foul Ball Safety Now. People can see for themselves and come up with their own conclusions, but Major League Baseball is not promoting this transparency, and that's why their legacy is tarnished because they have not been freely exchanging this information and coming clean and saying this is what we can expect. And because of what we can expect, we have to raise these questions about the youth and about where others should be sitting and knowing that there are risk factors. Until there's an outside netting agency that comes in and determines this is what we know, this is where the net should be, then we're all in the dark. Then they're just doing it on their own and they're not getting any kind of approval or oversight that's recognized. So,
okay, well, I wonder if they'd hire people to be able to do that. They should be able to.
Yeah, they have the budget to do lots of things, but baseball has to recognize it has to be told. The story needs to be told year to year on what opportunities were available to them and how they missed those opportunities. That's just the past. It's going to be recognized as, I think, secretive and not honest. And that's what I want to do. I want people to understand maybe all those times they had gone to games, they dodged a bullet. They're not going to be happy that they went to games with their kids 40 times in 10 years and realized that every time their little darlings were there with them, they could have been sitting ducks in the shooting gallery, but nobody told them. And I think baseball's legacy is going to be affected because of that, because families are going to be open to hearing what they may have escaped. We're sort of bringing like an epiphany of outrage. That's what one of the writers who I work with suggested, that once people realize they were sitting ducks and they had no reason being there with their little ones, they're not going to be pleased. And they'll realize that other people have been damaged forever. We've interviewed people that have been blinded by baseballs, and we know of the gentleman whose wife died at the Dodger game, Erwin Goldblum. He's been to 7 one-hour press conferences. Each time he showed up, he was very nice. Erwin Goldblum's wife was killed at the Dodger game in the Loge level in 2018. That's only one level up behind home plate. It took the Dodgers a year after to finally raise their nets behind home plate. There were a lot of games that went on right after his wife died. And did the other 29 ballparks raise their nets higher? I'm not sure, but everyone should be raising those questions. That's what we do here, Sharon. We try to put things on the table.
Yes. People need to be more aware of this. I don't know if it's ever been put in major newspapers at all, so people can be aware of it.
Yeah, I would love for newspapers to be more involved with us. There's a little bit of a conflict with some of the newspapers, even though they're supposed to be all about the journalism. A lot of the publishers aren't encouraging their editors to have their sports writers who cover teams like the Tigers and the Yankees and the Mets to write about this issue, because I have a feeling if they did too many special series on foul balls, they may be alienating themselves as a newspaper from the ball club. These reporters need to have interviews with these baseball players. I don't think they want to piss off the owners of the teams, because a lot of people buy that Detroit, New York newspaper because of the sports. You remember the newspapers were dominated by the sports pages in the back. So without interviews from those baseball players, you don't have as many sales. I'm just saying, I would love more journalism to just stare at this issue as we are. And then they could write longer articles, not just when somebody gets hurt, but almost go about it from like a long form article, or something you may see in a major magazine, like one of those 10,000 word articles. You don't see that in newspapers. And I would love to see a magazine writer talk about it, but nobody as of now has written a longer piece that I'm looking for. We won't want people to know about the issues, past and present. So, always welcome your ideas.
When I was researching, I know hockey has done it already because the person died from a hockey puck.
Thank you. We appreciate that. The girl died in 2002, and they did raise the nets way up high. Not saying nets don't still go over the sides at hockey games. They do. People have been hurt on the sides, but at least there was a proactive approach. There were probably many people that were injured prior to the little girl getting hurt, and I can't give the commissioner of hockey too much credit because he was commissioner for 9 years before the little girl died in the hockey place in Columbus. So, yeah, I appreciate that question, but you shouldn't wait till after somebody dies or somebody gets seriously injured. You should really take the before approach rather than the after approach. So, it would be great if more people, get involved and just get alerted to what we know. And then they can take this experience from us or take it with us. We're very excited to promote this work.
Yes. Are coaches aware of it too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Coaches are aware of it. Players are aware of it. Unfortunately, a coach died in 2008, and that was pretty sad. That was a regular guy. His name was Mike Coolbaugh, and he was a first base coach in the minor leagues. And how ironic, He used to tell his girlfriend before they got married, like when he was a player, to sit behind the nets because players are conflicted. And how ironic that this player, his wife was sharing with someone, or the story got out that he used to tell his own wife, you need to sit behind the nets, because when she would come watch him play, she would be talking with her friends where they were exposed. And he knew that one of the team guys would eventually hit a ball in that direction. So these players are conflicted because we've interviewed more than 30 players and they told us, they told their own family members to sit behind the nets. So we know they're conflicted. We're dealing with a Queens College student right now, a whistleblower student, and he called me. And it's at Foul Ball Safety Now. When you go look on the Queens College investigation, we know that these young college students are feeling psychological effects. They know one of them is eventually going to hurt a kid. Right outside the ballpark at Queens College, if you Google Earth, Queens College, it's right next to an elementary school. And these young athletes are worried amongst themselves who's going to crush or kill a kid. That's what they're thinking about. So when they called me, I wrote a letter to the administration. I got a response right away. That was back in May. We wrote a follow-up letter in July. And you can see those 2 letters at Foul Ball Safety Now. And we'll be following up with another letter so they finally have to deal with the situation. A lot of these 169 ballparks, some of the major league ballparks where there are home run balls that leave the field and go on the street, but the 169 ballparks, they're flying into parking lots all the time. Handful of balls every single game are flying outside and is raining on the parking lot or on the street. And we know of a woman in Modesto, California, who was hit in the head by a foul ball outside the ballpark. And she had a serious injury with her brain. So balls inside, balls outside, worthy of all of our time. We need to discuss these issues.
Yes. Well, I really appreciate talking to you about this today, and I pray that this can be done because it's really needed.
We really appreciate it. It's all about recognizing the past, about what could have been done, what can be done now, and we'll put it all in perspective. The more people who demand for accountability, then the faster we can put some integrity into baseball. But until then, baseball has no integrity. They're doing business as usual in the dark ages. And if people think differently, they're not paying attention. And this is really exciting that we're talking today.
Since working with Jordan and even in my own experiences and in online spaces, I do see a lot of pushback from baseball fans when first approached with this issue. Sharon, as a baseball fan, why do you think some fans don't really want to become aware of this issue or don't want to deal with this issue? And what would you say to them to kind of open their minds and their hearts to this?
Well, I think some are out there. I know when I've been at games, they have their mitts and little kids even and trying to catch a foul ball. And I don't think they're aware of how much they could be hurt. And that's what I think. A lot of them are just, they think it's a fun thing to go to a game and they're not thinking about safety.
I think that's a great answer. I think we're looking for more transparency, and I think it's always been missing. And we need the education. Regardless of what they tell us at the ballpark about being careful, I think we all know we're not superhuman, we're not superheroes, and we really have no business taking those experiences of close calls on a regular basis. We shouldn't be there to begin with. I really want to thank you, Sharon, for today, and really appreciate that. And I want everyone to follow Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. Looking forward to the next time. Thank you again, and we look forward to talking to you soon.